This is section 9.1, Multiplying and Dividing Rational Expressions. Our objective today is I can multiply and divide rational expressions. Remember when we simplified rational expressions? That was back in Algebra 1. Let's go ahead and refresh our memories. On example 1, we have x to the 5th over x squared. Remember when we're doing something like this, we want to think, okay, who has more? Well, the top has more, and how many more does he have? He has 3. We can also think about this as, okay, what is 5 minus 2? It gives us 3. So our answer here is x to the power of 3. In example 2, we have 5x over 10x plus 5. Now, we're going to have to do a little bit of something before we can cross anything out or get rid of anything. So here, we have 5x. We can't do anything with him, so we'll leave him as he is. But on the bottom, we can think back to factoring, and we know that the GCF here is 5. We can take out a 5 from the 10x and the 5. And that's going to leave us with 2x plus 1. Now we can cancel some things out. We can go ahead and cancel the 5 on the top and the 5 on the bottom, leaving us with x over 2x plus 1 as our final answer. Now remember, we can't cancel out the x and the 2x because the 2x plus 1 is a whole factor, so we'd have to cancel out a whole factor with it in order to cancel out. We have to cancel out whole factors at a time, and they have to be the exact same. On number 3, we have x squared plus 6x plus 5 over x plus 1. Again, we're going to have to do some factoring. If we look at the top, we have x squared plus 6x plus 5, and we can go ahead and use big X to factor the top. So if we use big X, we'd end up with x plus 5 and x plus 1, because 5 times 1 would give us the 5, and then 5 plus 1 would give us the 6. And then we still have an x plus 1 on the bottom. So now we can go ahead and cancel out like factors, which is going to be x plus 1 on top and x plus 1 on the bottom. So our final answer is just going to be x plus 5. In example 4, we're going to have to factor both the top and the bottom. So if I go ahead and factor the top, and I would use big X to do that, and we can refresh our memories with big X. So I'd have 14 on top because that's going to be our value of a times c. And then I can put my 9 on the bottom because that's my value of b. So remember, I want two numbers that multiply to 14 and add to 9. So in this case, it's going to be 7 and 2. So our factors are on the top are going to be x plus 7 and x plus 2. And now I need to factor out the bottom. Again, you can use big X, so you'd end up with x plus 7 and x plus 1. And now we can factor out our common factors, which in this case are going to be my x plus 7s. So that my final answer is going to be x plus 2 over x plus 1. So our steps for simplifying rational expressions can be written as the following. Number 1, you're going to factor the numerator and denominator. That's exactly what we did on each of these, if we could. Now on these, only number 4 was the only one that we could actually factor the top and the bottom. But you want to look to see if you can factor the numerator and denominator each time. And then we crossed out any factors that were in common. We eliminated them. And then we just simplified. We wrote what we were left with. When simplifying, did you know there are excluded values for each expression? The excluded values are the numbers that make the denominator equal to 0. So based on number 1 through 4 at the top, and I went ahead and wrote these back in here so we could look at them, we're going to find the excluded values by factoring the denominator and setting each of the factors equal to 0. So if you're asked for excluded values, we only care about the bottom. So on number 1, the denominator is x squared. So we're going to take x squared. We're going to factor it if we can. There's not really anything we could do here. And then we're going to set the factor equal to 0. So we're going to say equals 0. And then we're just going to go ahead and solve. So to solve for this, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And the square root of 0 is just 0. So x equals 0. is our final answer here. That's the excluded value, and we're actually going to say does not equal 0 because excluded means that it can't happen, so x does not equal 0. On number 2, our denominator is 10x plus 5. I'm going to set that equal to 0, and I'm going to solve for x. So when I do that, I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides so that I have 10x equals negative 5. I'm going to divide both sides by 10 so that x equals negative 1/2. And remember, we want to put that it does not equal because this is an excluded value. And number 3, our denominator is x plus 1. So we'll go ahead and take that, set it equal to 0, and then solve for x by subtracting 1 on both sides. So we end up with x equals negative 1. We'll change that to does not equal negative 1 for our final answer. And then on number 4, we have x squared plus 8x plus 7. Now we will have to factor this one first. So we'll go ahead and factor this, just like we did at the top, as x plus 7 and x plus 1. And that's going to be equal to 0. So now I'm going to take each of those factors, x plus 7 equals 0, and x plus 1 equals 0, and I'm going to solve both of those for x. So in the first case, I'm subtracting 7, so I end up with x does not equal negative 7. And this one's going to have 2. So when we solve the second one, we end up with x does not equal negative 1. And those are both excluded values. We can multiply and divide rational expressions by using what we already know about simplifying rational expressions. So we're going to go ahead and simplify the following expressions. We have 6c over 5d times 15cd squared over 8a. So when we're multiplying, the trick is we just want to connect the line. So we have 6c over 5d, and we're just going to go ahead and extend that line on out and put the rest on here. So we have 15cd squared. And then we have 8a on the bottom. So these are being multiplied together. That's why we can just go ahead and expand that line. So now I actually want to see what I can do, what I can cancel from the top and the bottom. So here I can see that this 5 can go away and reduce with this 15, and 15 is going to change into a 3. I also see that my 6 and my 8 can be reduced by 2, so my 8 is going to change to a 4. My 6 is going to change into a 3. And I always like to do the numbers first, and you may like to do the letters first. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to rewrite what I have now. So I have 3 times 3 on the top, which gives me 9. I have 2 c's on the top, which is going to give me c squared, and I have a d squared on the top. On the bottom, I'm just left with 4ad. And there's one more thing I can simplify here. I can get rid of my 2 d's and make that 1, and then just get rid of my 1 on the bottom. So that my final answer is going to be 9c squared d over 4a. And then on B, we're actually going to be dividing. So the only difference here, we're going to keep our first piece. We're going to keep 18xy cubed over 7a squared b squared. And we're going to multiply. We're going to change it to multiply because division and multiplication are opposites of each other. We're just going to flip the second fraction. So we're going to have 35a squared b all over 12x squared y. And then just like in number 1, we're just going to expand our line here. We're going to connect those. And then we're going to see, okay, what can I reduce? So right away, I notice that I can go ahead and cross out the 18 and the 12. And I know that 6 goes into those. 6 goes into 12 twice, and 6 goes into 18 3 times. I can also go ahead and reduce my 7 and my 35. My 7 is going to change into 1, and my 35 will turn into a 5. And now I can rewrite what I have left. So I have 5 times 3 on the top, which is going to give me 15. I have an x, a y cubed, an a squared, and a b. On the bottom, I have a 2, an a squared, a b squared, a x squared, and a y. And now I can go ahead and reduce some of those letters. So here I have 1x I can get rid of, change this x into just 1x. I can completely get rid of my a squareds. I can get rid of this b squared and turn it into a 1, and then totally get rid of this b. And then I can get rid of this y and turn this one into y squared. So that my final answer here is going to be 15y squared over 2b.